hii amendment ambayo imeletwa itafanya wale watu ambao hawana watu wa kuwasaidia kufanya mahesabu ya KRA wawe subjected to victimization by the Commissioner of Taxes. Na hii provision inataka kumpatia Commissioner of Tax more powers to come and reassess your business. Kama ulikuwa umelipa hii ushuru, taxpayerman atakuwa anakuja kwako na kuambia sasa wewe ulilipa hii ushuru, lakini according to me I'm assessing you afresh. Unafaa uongeze tax, ulipe hii. Na mnajua hii ni Nairobi na hii ni Kenya. Ukipatia mtu nguvu kama hii, tutarudi pahali tulikuwa wakati wa Moi. Unajua sasa tukifanya the penalties including failure to submit tax returns. Jameni, ni vinyozi vingapi zinafanya tax return? Ni saloons ngapi zinafanya tax return? Tukiruhusu hii, biashara dogo dogo tumeisha. I think the government has rushed to the public gallery to create an impression that the current finance bill proposed is not going to affect people's livelihood. And I think that is a perception that must be uncovered, because if we do so, we shall assume so much and much will happen under the bridge. If I touch on the income tax amendment, increased threshold for certain deductions. And for those who have a pen, you can go and check on Income Tax Act Section 5. The amendment that has been slotted in the finance bill potentially reduces the tax relief available for low-income earners and those with minimum deductible expenses. This will, in turn, effectively increase their taxable income and tax liability. What is tax liability? It is now the burden, the tax burden that you have been given. So there are so many people who have not ideally been paying taxes because their incomes were what we call low income earners. But now the taxman is proposing to reach them and remove some of the reliefs that were given there earlier. And that is to mean the so-called hustlers, the people who work in offices that were not ideally targeted because their income was low, now they are going to get into the taxman's dragnet. And that is why I said in one of the radio stations that this finance bill is ideally targeting hustlers. And that is what Buddy is saying. They are expanding the tax base by making sure that even the hustlers, the low-income earners, are able to start paying income tax. Repealing of compensating tax and the related provisions as proposed in Section 2, Sabbatical 16, and the removal of compensating tax, remember, might increase the tax liability for companies. What does that mean? If the companies have a higher tax liability, it has no alternatives other than pass this cost to the consumers of the products and services they are producing and providing through higher prices. This is what I said the other day, and some people were all over saying, oh, Wamuchomba is not speaking the truth. If a compensation tax is removed, for example, for a for a sugar factory, what do you expect that factory to do? Is to make sure that whatever cost they have been charged through tax paying will be passed to the consumers of the product they are producing, which is sugar. And this doesn't mean that it is limited to sugar industry. It is going to be spread out even to the bread manufacturers. It's going to be affecting every other company that is going to have impact on the removal of the compensating tax. Minimum top-up tax payment deadlines, as indicated in Section 12G, the introduction of the requirement to pay the minimum top-up tax by the 4th month after the end of every income year is also going to be very, very punitive. Section 12G also imposes a tighter timeline for compliance. Now, wale ambao wanafanya biashara dogo dogo, naomba munisikize kama mko hapa. Small businesses and self-employed individuals may face tighter penalties or financial stress due to these accelerated tax payment schedules introduced. You know, most of the small businesses, the SMEs, the self-employed people, they normally do not employ qualified accountants for a monthly salary. They normally procure somebody to come and just do your papers, align your papers, and file tax for you once a year. But based on the proposals that are on Section 12G, subsection 3A, small businesses are not going to catch up here. And they might end up closing down because of the penalties that have been introduced. There is also an element of advanced pricing agreements, Section 18G. The provision allowing the Commissioner of Tax to declare an agreement void due to misrepresentation could create uncertainty, especially with businesses. And most businesses, especially serious investors, will shy away from investing in Kenya. And potentially give the commissioner subjective powers, which can be abused at a fee. You all Kenyans, you know how we behave when we have power. So businesses may incur additional compliance costs to ensure agreements are upheld and potentially passing this cost to the consumers. I have just only touched on the income tax amendments. If I touch on value added tax VAT amendment, part 3 of the finance bill, liability for tax on exempt or zero rated supplies as cited in section 66A. This is a trap for future. This is imposing tax liability on individuals or businesses that import or purchase exempt or zero-rated goods and services and later use or dispose them in a matter inconsistent with the exempt purposes. Wale wanjaja ambao tulikuwa tunaenda tunanunua services ama goods ziko exempt, ndio tujipange biashara tuziuze baadaye, tumenaswa. Reduced timeline and time frame for VAT refunds. Section 31 of Finance Bill is proposing demands taxpayer compliance, efficiency in an inefficient ecosystem. What do I mean? It is reducing the period for claiming VAT funds from 3 years to 2 years. Like I said, this is a serious demand for SMEs. They cannot keep up with this framework if they don't have an in-house accountant. So that means every small business must employ a professional experts, tax experts and accountants. Deletion of exemptions. Goods and services that were exempted there before, we are proposing in the Finance Bill, first schedule part 1, that we delete all the exemptions. This therefore means removing tax relief for various goods and services such as medicine, agricultural inputs, project-related supplies, and aircraft spares. Please note, when I talk about medicine, I'm speaking about medicine that were ideally exempted from VAT. If we delete that, it means the medicine that we have been importing in this country, we will start paying VAT. My question is, as a politician, as an economist, as a businesswoman, what value are we adding to this medicine to qualify us to add VAT on medicine? And in the return, medicine is going to be very expensive. Healthcare is going to be completely expensive. You all know that our public hospitals do not sustainably supply us with sufficient medication. We all resort to rushing to pharmacies and chemists around our estates. So if this proposal goes through, it means that dawa you normally rush to buy is going to go up. This is not what CS Bandi is telling us. Bandi is telling us nothing is moving. They are not adding anything. But they are not telling you that when they remove exemptions on medicine, that will happen. I represent farmers in Githongori. And we all look forward to budget reading so that we know whether chakula ya mifugo yetu kama itaenda juu ama itashuka. Leo hii nimetoka Githunguri na nimeongea na wakulima na nikawaelezea kama hii proposal itapita, animal feeds, raw materials for making livestock feeds zimetolewa exemption, which is very good, but zimewekewa VAT. So if you do your mathematics, what was the percentage of exemption versus the VAT added on top? In fact, we have no reason to celebrate. We have a reason to complain, because animal feeds, if they are manufactured here in Kenya, added value here in Kenya will be more expensive than importing finished animal feeds manufactured in Tanzania or other countries. Trust me, this is not good. I cannot be able to touch on every other product that has been proposed to be deleted for the exemption, but I've just mentioned medicine and agricultural inputs. Changes to food supplements and other items, especially items that are used by vulnerable populations, including the elderly and those with chronic illnesses, may struggle to afford essential health products and therefore worsening health conditions in this country. Excise duty amendments. Can I proceed?
Yes. Yes, please.
On excise duty amendments, increased excise duty on certain goods. For example, higher costs of constructions as proposed in this amendment will increase housing and commercial properties prices. Wale ambao mko kwa mjengo, isipokuwa tu ni steel has been taken care of. I don't know who is that who was really shouting very well to be heard by the executive, because it's only steel that has been taken care of, because in the miscellaneous fees and levies amendment, there are changes that may affect the cost of doing business using steel industry in Kenya. Export and investment levies in the third schedule has been proposed to be reduced from 17.5% to 5%. Steel products that may be affected will be iron sheets and steel products. That's the only positive item that I have seen in the finance bill that is going to favor people that are in business and that are in construction industry. The rest of the materials that are used in the construction industry in Kenya, through the excise duty amendment part 4, they are affected and their cost will go high. And if their costs are going to go high, then it means the cost of building housing in Kenya will be higher, and commercial properties prices, including rents, might go up. Because if I construct a house and nilikuwa nimechukua loni na vitu zimeenda juu, itabidi nikikondisha nyumba zangu basi ni charge rent iko juu sana. Expansion of excise duty on digital services. Nimesikia Daktari Mutuma akiongea. Section 5 and 13 of the proposed finance bill. This expansion is trying to reach out to as many taxpayers who are ideally not paying tax as possible, especially those people who are using digital services, including you people who are on X right now. We have struggled very much to capture a word that they tried to capture last time during finance bill wakalemewa. Na hii word ni ile inaitwa over the internet. So we are providing an amendment, or we are bringing an amendment as a proposal to insert the word over the internet to make sure the traditional digital services have not only been limited to what we used to know as digital services, to everything else in a broader term that is going to be done over the internet. So that is to mean ideally, any service you are doing over the internet is going to get into this expansion of excise duty in Kenya. And therefore, those services are going to be expensive. When I mean over the internet, I mean anything over the internet under the electronic networks, digital marketplaces, particularly targeting non-residential suppliers of softwares. This could increase the cost of digital services such as streaming platforms, e-commerce platforms, online subscriptions, and I'm sure the Gen Zs and the millennials may face even higher cost of entertainment, e-education, what we call online learning, or business related on business dependent on online services. And when I touch on this, on digital services, please note, we have also struggled to introduce something called or redefine something called royalty. When I talk about royalty, I'm talking about software royalties. So most of you, or those of you who use softwares that come from other countries, irrespective of the fact that those softwares are developed and they have their copyrights in other countries, you are just a distributor, or you have been given loyalty for that software to use it in Kenya, or you are a marketing agent of that software. Hata wewe umenaswa, utakuwa unalipia hiyo software ambayo utakuwa unatumia. As a representative of the farmers, I am very, very keen to follow on the deletion of certain exemptions. Alas, this is a positive. Deleting exemptions and removing excise duty for imported eggs and onions and potatoes and certain plastics. Those of you who are writing, you can quote first schedule part 1 of the proposed finance bill 2025. Now, as a representative of a farmer, I am quick to note that this is not a positive thing for me, for my farmers. Why? Because you cannot remove exemptions for eggs, you delete, and then you put VAT on manufacturing of animal feed. Because if you exempt eggs from, for example, Uganda or Tanzania, and you are still adding VAT on livestock production in Kenya, livestock animal feeds in Kenya, it means farming of eggs and related products like milk will be expensive in Kenya than other countries. That's my interpretation. And therefore, it will be easier for me, if I'm an egg dealer or an egg marketer, to go to Tanzania and get their eggs because they will be cheaper in Kenya than our local eggs production. Because remember, even if we exempted animal feeds, raw animal feeds material, we are still adding VAT on top, 16%. So to me, I'm actually accusing the government, if they do this, as a saboteur of farming in Kenya, because you are sabotaging the eggs production in Kenya. I happen to have represented Thika in the last parliament as the women rep, and I know Thika produces almost 90% of the eggs we are consuming in Kiambu County. And therefore I know if the raw materials we normally buy from Thika to make animal feeds, including chicken feeds, if those raw materials will be exempted and then we add VAT on top, we'll be doing zero work in manufacturing of animal feeds, and most farmers will shut down and run to other countries to import eggs, to import onion, potatoes, and such like stuff. Tax procedures amendment, like I had said, this is a way of assisting the government to get, offenders, people who do not file tax returns, people who don't pay tax. Na hii Tax Procedures Amendment Act, hii haki ni kali sana. Hii itafanya wale ambao wanafanya kazi hizi za SMEs wafunge biashara waende nyumbani. Penalties ambazo zimerekomendiwa ziko juu sana. Na hakuna pahali nimeona kama kuna window ya encourage investment. Mimi nimeona tu ni windows tu za kunasa. wale ambao wote hawalipi ushuru. So the stricter compliance requirement, there are very many amendments that have been proposed to increase administrative burdens for taxpayers. For example, Section 23A, we are revising the manner in which we operate the electronic tax invoice requirements. And Section 44, it is also giving the Commissioner of Tax the mandate to provide a reason for amended assessments. And this can overwhelm small businesses with limited accounting expertise in Kenya. Like I had mentioned, hii amendment ambayo imeletwa itafanya wale watu ambao hawana watu wa kuwasaidia kufanya mahesabu ya KRA wawe subjected to victimization by the Commissioner of Taxes. Na hii provision inataka kumpatia Commissioner of Tax more powers to come and reassess your business. Kama ulikuwa umelipa hii ushuru, taxpayerman atakuwa anakuja kwako na kuambia sasa wewe ulilipa hii ushuru, lakini according to me I'm assessing you afresh. Unafaa uongeze tax, ulipe hii. Na mnajua hii ni Nairobi na hii ni Kenya. Ukipatia mtu nguvu kama hii, tutarudi pahali tulikuwa wakati wa Moi. Wakati mtu mmoja alikuwa amepewa nguvu ya kuinspect magari ya Thika Motor Inspectorate, kama mnaweza kumbuka. Na huyu mtu alikuwa anasimama pale Wayakiwe. Anasimamisha magari ya watu binafsi, anajua huyu ni adui yangu ya kisiasa. Huyu ni familia, hatusikizanangi kifamilia. Anakusimamisha kwa barabara. Anakwambia hii gari yako hujafanya inspection. Leta mfuko yangu na ulete ya rais. That is what used to happen during Moi's regime. Tukikubalia hii kitu ipite hivi, akia Mungu mtanikumbuka. Extended objection and assessment periods. Like I said, period yenye tulikuwa tumepatiwa ya kufanya maneno ya procedures za tax na objections za tax imereduciwa from 90 days to 120 days and from 120 to 180 in certain cases. And the new computation period for objections decisions, that is according to Section 451, could delay tax dispute resolutions. Unajua msiposikizana na taxman, unafaa upatiwe period ambayo mutakuwa muna review. You review. Muweke kitu inaitwa tax dispute. Ndio mpate resolutions. This proposal is going to delay tax dispute resolutions. Na unajua sasa wewe ukiwa mwanabiashara, kama dispute resolution yako haijakuwa sorted na KRA, hata kwa akili huwezi fanya biashara. Kama umewekewa kesi inakaa miaka miwili, miezi mitano, huwezi import muzigo kutoka China, kutoka Turkey. For me, I think this is a bad thing for businesses. I think we need to be a bit more efficient on the way we resolve disputes, and this proposal may not be the right one. Penalties for non-compliance, Section 83. This is expanding penalties to include failure to submit, please underline this word, failure to submit tax returns, increasing the risk of fines for non-compliance of taxes. Hiyo ndio ajabu ya hii proposal. Unajua sasa tukifanya the penalties including failure to submit tax returns, jameni, ni vinyozi vingapi zinafanya tax return? Ni saloons ngapi zinafanya tax return? Tukiruhusu hii, biashara dogo dogo tumeisha.